Hi soulmates, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. On today's class we'll be making a pencil skirt with ruffle or a ruffled skirt. Please like, share and subscribe and stick to the end of the video, and also support my YouTube channel by hitting on the subscribe button. So the first thing I'm going to do is to mark out my vertical measurements, my hip, my navel and my skirt length. So I'm going to make use of the upper part of the paper as the starting point. From there I'm going to mark 7 inches down. You can use 8 inches, but I normally use 7 inches to get my hip point. Then after that I'm going to mark my skirt length, and then I'm going to add 2 inches for folding allowance. That 2 inches you can either turn up, but for this tutorial I'm not going to add lining to the dress, so I'm just going to fold the dress. So the total length of the skirt I'm making is 19 inches, so I'm just going to mark that 19 inches and mark 2 inches down. So I'm going to go back up and do the same process. I'm going to mark my navel, my hip line and the skirt length. After that I'm going to outline it. So I'm going to go back to the hip area, and I'm also going to outline the hip area to indicate where I'll be placing my hip measurements and also my navel or my waistline. So I'm going to divide my navel circumference by 4 plus 1 inch dart allowance, and then I'm going to add 1 inch for sewing allowance also. At my hip point I'm going to divide my hip by 4 plus 1 inch for sewing allowance. I'm not going to be adding dart allowance here because the darts will not reach the hip point. So at the skirt length or folding area I'm going to minus 2 inches from whatever I have at my hip. The reason why we are doing this is to achieve a pencil or fitted skirt. So whatever you have at your hip plus the allowance, you minus 2 inches. Assuming your hip is 40, you have to do 40 divided by 4. That will give you 10 plus 1 inch allowance, that's 11. Then you minus 2 inches from that your hip and then mark. Then after that I'm just going to use my French curve and connect the line from my navel to my hip. The reason why I'm doing this is to avoid a pointy edge. After connecting to my hip I'm going to connect to my skirt length and down to my folding. So I'm going to mark the dart intake. So to mark the dart you need to use the person's bust span, which is the person's nipple to nipple divided by 2. So I'm working with 7 divided by 2. I have 3.5. So I'm going to mark 3.5 at that point. Then I'm going to take it down by 4 inches because I'm going to use a 4 inches dart. So I'm going to mark half on both sides and then connect to that half. I'm going to repeat it for the both sides. So for the back dart, the same is applicable to it, just that before you mark it you have to give 1 inch or 2 inches for zipper allowance, whatever measurement you're using for your zipper allowance. So I'm going to cut out the pattern paper, then place it on my fabric and cut. So this is the back pattern. I just added 1 inch for zipper allowance, so I'm just going to outline that line. If you're marking the dart for the back, so you have to start from that 1 inch point after your zipper allowance or 2 inches after your zipper allowance, and mark your bust span and do the same like I did for the front pattern. So I'm going to outline it from the upper part to the down part. I'm going to place my pattern on my fabric, unfold, and then I'm going to cut out. So I'm going to go over to the sewing machine, fold the 2 inches I added, because like I said earlier I'm not going to add lining. So I'm going to fold the 2 inches, and I'm also going to do the same for the front pattern, and I'm going to fold the down part also. Then after folding it I'm going to stitch up this part with 1 inch and leave about 7 inches down. Hi soulmates, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If it's your first time viewing my channel, please like, share and subscribe, and Don't forget to turn up the notification button to get new updates from my channel. If you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always supporting me and viewing my channel. I really appreciate. I'm done folding, so I'm going to insert my dart. So I'm going to pin it down, fold it into two. What I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple measurements. Your nipple to nipple measurement, which is 3.5, and I'm not going to mark it. Then I'm going to mark half, mark that 4 inches and extend my line. So on that point, like so, I'm going to mark half here, then mark half here. Then I'm going to connect my lines. Then I'm going to connect my lines like so. So I will turn it over for the back side, and I'm going to do so. I'm going to mark that 3.5. Half here, mark half here, and I'm going to connect it to this and connect this to this. Then I'm going to go over to the machine and sew this. So I've done the dart for the front. I'm going to go over and do the dart for the back. So for the back dart, I'm going to mark out my zipper allowance before marking my dart intake. I've also inserted the dart for the back. So I'm going to place front side facing front, the front side of the front pattern and the front side of the back. So I'm going to place it together and sew with 1 inch. If you remembered earlier, I only added 1 inch sewing allowance, so I'm just going to sew 1 inch allowance. So I'm just going to turn it after joining it, and then I'm going to give it a good press after. So the next thing is to attach band. I'm going to measure my waistline. I'm supposed to be having 29. That's the waistline is 27 plus 1 inch on both sides for zipper allowance. That's making it 2 inch, total of 29. So I'm just going to measure it and cut out band of 2.5 on fold. Then I'll attach the skirt band with half. So I've attached the skirt band and also the zip. The next thing I'll do is to mark out the design or where the area I want to attach my fleet. So I'm going to place my French curve. You can use a freehand sketch. Then I'm going to place it and draw to that end. Then I'm going to connect the lines around. So I'm going to draw the curve to the side of the skirt, and then from there I'll make sure I mark out the exact line at the back. Then I'll connect it to the other point on top. So for the ruffle, I measured 7.5 because I don't want to use a very long ruffle. So you can measure 10 inches in width, and depending on how long you want it to be. So you can also measure your curve and multiply it by 2. So I'm just going to go to the machine and run a gather stitch at one side and then fold the other side. The next step is to pin the ruffle on that mark that I made. So I'm done pinning, and I'm going to go over to the machine and sew. Before I sew, I'm just going to open up my zip to make it easier for me to sew. And also, if the skirt is too tight because I closed the slit, you can open your slit. So I'm going to sew carefully on top of that gather stitch that I made earlier. So I'm going to take it round, and after sewing, I'm going to weave out or hem all my rough edges. So this is the final look of the skirt. With this, we have come to the end of today's class. Please like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and don't forget to turn up the notification button to get new updates from my channel. And also drop your comments at the comment section or any video you would like me to share with you. And also hit that subscribe button to keep my channel going.